The Dallas Cowboys are once again at the center of draft conversations. And one of the most intriguing names drawing attention right now is a player who hasn't stepped on the field in quite some time. That alone already makes this situation fascinating, because evaluating talent is one thing, but evaluating talent after a long period without game action is something completely different. Teams are forced to rely on old film, medical reports, workouts, and private evaluations, which makes every small piece of information extremely important in the decision-making process. Recently, his pro day performance sparked a lot of discussion, especially because many people simply wanted to see if he still had the same athletic ability that showed up on tape before the injury. And from an athletic testing perspective, the results were very encouraging. The vertical jump numbers were strong, the broad jump showed explosion, and the straight line speed looked very solid as well. Those are the types of measurements that are difficult to fake because they directly reflect lower body power and explosiveness, which are critical traits for defensive players, especially for someone expected to cover receivers and react quickly in open space. Speed was another major talking point. The 40-yard dash time, even when adjusted for pro day timing differences, still placed him in a very good range compared to other players at his position. That matters because in today's game, speed is not just a luxury for defensive backs, it is a necessity. Teams are constantly facing faster receivers, more spread offenses, and more one-on-one situations, so having a player who can run and recover quickly is extremely valuable. From that standpoint, he checked an important box that many scouts were waiting to see. However, testing numbers are only one part of the evaluation. What teams really want to know is how he moves during football drills, how he changes direction, how comfortable he looks when reacting instead of running in a straight line. That part of the evaluation is always harder for fans to see because not every drill gets recorded or posted online, and sometimes only teams and scouts have access to the full workout. That creates a situation where information comes out slowly, and sometimes different reports say slightly different things, which only adds more mystery around the player. Another important factor in this entire situation is the injury history and the timeline of recovery. When a player misses a long period of time, teams want to know not only if he is healthy now, but also why he didn't return earlier if there were moments when a return seemed possible. Those questions do not always have simple answers, and sometimes teams will spend a lot of time in private meetings trying to understand exactly what happened during the recovery process. Medical evaluations will play a massive role here, maybe even more important than the workout itself, because long-term durability is something teams cannot ignore, especially when talking about a potential first-round selection. For the Cowboys specifically, this becomes even more interesting because of their current roster situation and draft strategy. The team has made it clear in different moments that they want players who can contribute immediately, not players who will need a full season just to recover or develop physically. That philosophy could influence how they evaluate this situation, because even if the talent level is very high, availability and readiness to play right away could be the deciding factor when they're on the clock. At the same time, talent like this does not appear in every draft class. When you watch the old game film, you can clearly see why scouts were so excited about him before the injury. The ability to stay with receivers, the physicality, the instincts, and the confidence in coverage were all very noticeable. Those are traits that cannot be easily taught, and that is why some teams might still be willing to take the risk if the medical reports look positive enough. In the first round, teams are always balancing risk and reward, and this might be one of the biggest risk versus reward decisions in this entire draft class. There's also the strategic aspect of a draft itself. Sometimes a team does not even need to select a player for that player to impact them. If multiple teams value him highly and he goes earlier than expected, that could push another talented player down the board. On the other hand, if teams are worried about the medical situation and he falls in the draft, that could create a completely different decision scenario for teams picking in the middle of the first round. Draft night is always unpredictable, and players with injury history often create some of the biggest surprises. Another interesting storyline is how different teams value different physical traits depending on their defensive system. Some teams prefer longer defensive backs, Others prefer faster and more agile players, and some teams focus more on physical press coverage ability. Because of that, the same player can be ranked very differently from one team to another, which again adds more uncertainty about where he could be selected. In the end, what we are seeing right now is a player who reminded everyone of his athletic ability and raw talent, but at the same time still leaves several unanswered questions about health, readiness, and long-term durability. Those questions are exactly what make the draft process so complicated and so interesting, especially for a team like the Cowboys that needs immediate contributors but also cannot ignore high-level talent when it becomes available. As the draft approaches, the pressure on teams to make the right decision becomes even greater, and situations like this one often divide front offices. Some decision-makers prioritize pure talent and believe that if the medical staff clears a player, the upside is worth the risk. Others are more conservative and prefer players with a cleaner medical history and more recent game film. This difference in philosophy can completely change how a draft board looks from one team to another, and it only takes one team to fall in love with a player for everything to change on draft night. For the Cowboys, this decision could also be influenced by how the board falls before their pick. If several offensive players go early and push defensive talent down, the team might find itself choosing between multiple high-level defenders instead of focusing on just one name. That scenario would give them flexibility and allow them to compare medical reports, scheme fit, and long-term potential before making the final decision. Draft strategy is often about patience and positioning rather than just targeting one specific player from the beginning. All of this creates a very complex decision-making process, and that is why draft season is always full of rumors, reports, and speculation. Some information is accurate, some is not, and teams try to keep their real intentions as secret as possible. Fans often only see a small part of the process, but behind the scenes there are countless meetings, medical evaluations, film sessions, and discussions happening every single day leading up to the draft. So as we get closer to draft night, the big question remains whether the Cowboys will prioritize immediate availability or long-term upside if they have the opportunity to select this player. It is a classic draft dilemma, and the answer will depend on medical evaluations, confidence in recovery, and how the draft board looks when they are finally on the clock. Another layer to this situation is the pressure that comes with being a first-round pick, especially for a franchise like Dallas, where every move is heavily analyzed and discussed. A player coming off an injury and being selected early in the draft would immediately face expectations to perform, contribute, and justify the selection. That mental pressure can be just as challenging as the physical recovery, and teams have to evaluate whether the player is ready for that environment, not just physically but mentally as well. The Cowboys also have to think about roster construction beyond just this season. Draft picks are not only about immediate impact, they're also about building a foundation for the future. If the team believes this player could become a top defensive piece for many years, that long-term value might outweigh short-term concerns. On the other hand, if the team feels they need immediate starters to remain competitive right now, that could push them toward a safer selection with fewer medical concerns. There is also the reality that the draft is unpredictable, and sometimes the best strategy is simply to be flexible. Teams that lock themselves into one specific player often end up disappointed if that player is selected earlier than expected. The smartest teams prepare for multiple scenarios, multiple positions, and multiple players so that no matter how the draft unfolds, they are ready to make a smart decision when their turn arrives. Scouts and coaches also spend a lot of time comparing players with similar grades. When two players are close in talent, small details become very important. Medical history, work ethic, football intelligence, leadership, and even personality can become the deciding factor between two prospects. That is why interviews and private meetings are sometimes more important than fans realize, because teams are trying to understand who the player is beyond the field. Another interesting element is how a player's performance before the injury continues to influence opinions. When a player shows elite ability on film, that image often stays in the minds of scouts and coaches for a long time. They remember the way he moved, the plays he made, and the way he competed against top opponents. If the workouts show that the athleticism is still there, teams may feel more confident that the player can return to that same level once he is fully back in a game rhythm. As draft night gets closer, the conversations will only become more intense, the rumors will become louder, and the possibilities will continue to change. Teams will finalize their boards, doctors will give their final medical opinions, and decision-makers will debate every possible scenario. And when the moment finally comes and the Cowboys are on the clock, all of these discussions, evaluations, and projections will come down to one decision that could shape the future of the team for years to come. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The NFL world is buzzing with whispers that entity name equals Dak Prescott, type equals athlete, disambiguation equals Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Dak Prescott / entity has reportedly delivered an ultimatum to the entity name equals Dallas Cowboys, type equals sports _ team, disambiguation equals NFL team, Dallas Cowboys / entity, sparking speculation about the team's immediate off-season strategy. Sources close to the situation suggest that Prescott, after restructuring his lucrative contract, is pressing the front office to pursue high-profile veteran signings, signaling a potential shift in the franchise's approach to roster building. According to insiders, the star quarterback is eager to surround himself with proven talent, especially in key positions where experience could translate into more consistent performances on the field. Prescott's rumored demands reportedly go beyond the typical calls for depth. He is said to be targeting players with a track record of success in high-pressure games, suggesting a desire not just for support, but for leaders who can elevate younger teammates. The Cowboys' locker room dynamics could be at a turning point, with Prescott positioning himself as more than just a player, but a vocal architect of the team's immediate competitiveness. Analysts speculate that if the organization acquiesces, it could lead to aggressive moves in free agency, perhaps even surprising trades to bring in seasoned playmakers. The timing of such acquisitions is crucial, as any new additions would need to mesh quickly with an offense already built around Prescott's leadership and on-field vision. Rumors indicate that Prescott's ultimatum may also be a strategic move to assert influence over the coaching staff's priorities, potentially affecting draft decisions and training camp rotations. While the Cowboys have historically balanced youth development with selective veteran signings, Prescott's stance could signal a more win-now mentality, one that places pressure on management to meet immediate expectations rather than long-term planning. Fans and media outlets are already speculating on which veterans might be on Prescott's wish list, with names ranging from battle-tested offensive linemen to dynamic wide receivers capable of stretching the field. Whatever the outcome, one thing seems clear. Prescott is not content with mediocrity, and his vision for the team appears to be steering the Cowboys toward a roster that blends star power with experience. The coming weeks promise to be telling as the front office weighs its options against the backdrop of Prescott's reported demands. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.